Hi guys, Katie here for Module 3 discussion. So, for Chapter 3, there were actually a lot of studies and theories that I found really interesting. But I think the one I'm going to pick for the one that I liked the most would be the relay assembly study on page 74. So they basically took 6 female employees and isolated them all in separate rooms and had them do their work on their own. And while they were doing that work, they made fluctuations in their environment, starting out with like the conditions of the room, like the temperature, humidity, or lighting. And then they also changed things like pay rate, bonuses, their work days, break periods, stuff like that. And no matter what they changed over a 2.5 year period, the productivity increased for all of these women. And they couldn't really nail that down to anything specific other than they all had really good positive attitudes. So I thought that was kind of cool that that they were basically not able to find anything tangible to draw that productivity increase to. It was all basically just these people had good attitudes and that's why they continued to do better. I think it really goes to show how much a positive attitude can impact your life. I disliked Scientific Management by Frederick Taylor. That was on page 67. His concept basically is that organizations are management oriented and production centered. They should be run like machines, so human workers should be machines for companies. Anything that has anything to do with thought should be handled by managers. People or frontline workers basically don't have a brain. So managers are made to be managers for a reason, but they're not the only people in the organization who have ideas and thoughts to make improvements, in my opinion. I think as a manager, you are taking a really big loss if you ignore your frontline workers and their opinions. You're not the one doing that work, so it's really hard to be in the moment and understand what maybe needs to change or happen to ensure the best productivity without consulting those frontline workers who do it day in, day out. There's also there's a whole bunch about this one that I could go on and on about, but I won't. But I do think that the part where it said Frederick Taylor basically thinks that workers are inherently lazy and need to be constantly supervised was kind of a classist opinion, I guess, in my mind. Moving on to chapter 4, the semiotic tradition, I think is how you say it, theory on communication was really interesting. That's on page 102. Semiotic basically means the study of signs. So in essence, this theory looks at signs and words as symbols and how they're used to communicate. Some symbols and words depict an object that pretty much has the same meaning for everyone who views it, like a stop sign. However, there are a load of symbols that are considered subjective. The text uses the example of the word dog. So the word dog to some people could be interpreted as a friendly pet, but to somebody else it could be considered a dangerous animal. This reminded me of my cousins when I was young who lived in Seattle and they never had any pets. And when they came over to visit and met our dog, they were terrified and hiding in the corner of this dog, who I thought was like the happiest, sweetest thing in the whole world. So it's kind of an interesting thought. Basically, how you interpret these symbols and words is subject to your own personal experience, which makes sense. For the one that I disliked, I'm going to go with the critical approach on pages 91 to 92. Yeah. It just felt like a manipulative concept. Basically, it says reification is something when something historical is made to seem natural, and universalization is when that becomes an idea that's represented for everyone as if it's their own interest. Like the idea that the best thing for you and for your company is to make the company a profit. That's everyone's motivation from the owner to the frontline worker should be to get that profit for that company. It also talks about technical reasoning, how managerial goals or ideas become the norm and everything else is deemed irrational, such as engaging in employee participation in ideas, which kind of routes back to Frederick Taylor in chapter 3, in my opinion. I don't know, it just really felt really manipulative and not very nice. As for the merit case study, it reminded me a lot of scientific management in chapter 3. It really felt like the goal of that company was just to make money at all costs. That could also be seen as like the critical approach too. Basically, nothing anyone ever said changed management's viewpoint on the issues at hand. They completely ignored all of the problems they were being seen and went off their tiny amount of data to say that these medications were safe when they knew that they weren't. They basically put their profit above their employees, their customers, even the FDA. Basically, nothing was of concern to them other than making their profit. So yeah, that's what I got. I'm looking forward to hear what you all have to say this week. Have a great day.